Hi, Tales from the Shed. Here we are again.
And this time, Alison's going to speak about something that I came across many years ago and I have used really successfully. But I must admit, I've had a bit of a hitch in the last couple of weeks in life, because everyone does, bubbles through. And I'd forgotten about it until Alison reminded me, and it's been brilliant. So tell us it.
So yeah, it's this, and I think it was just something that a friend of mine posted, and I kind of heard about it, and it's this kind of Hawaiian prayer. You might have heard of it, Ho'oponopono, and I think that the
or what?
Ho'oponopono. That's what I'm. That's how I'm saying. Ho'opono, whatever. One of those, lots of those in it. I think the way I get it, it's is it I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you. It's a prayer. And what I had realised, I'd heard about this, and I'd heard about how somebody had kind of developed this, or it had come to notice because it's Hawaiian, so how it kind of got out into the wider world. And it was a story about somebody who was a psychiatrist, and that he'd been asked to work in quite a nasty, violent psychiatric unit where they hadn't really been able to do anything with the inmates. And so what happened was,
no inmate had ever come out again.
Yeah, that's right.
And the people that worked there never let them out their cells or met them because they were too violent. So there'd been, I can't remember how many deaths, but an unusual amount of deaths.
Yeah, so all of this was kind of going on, and what this new appointed psychiatrist
Dr.
did,
Hugh Lynn.
Yeah, Hugh Lynn. So what he did was, he said, I'm not going to go in and visit patients. All I'm going to do is I'm going to look at their files, and I'm going to say this prayer while I look at their files. And what happened as a result was the results were quite amazing, in that at some point people actually, the absenteeism in the staff went down because it became a nice place to work. The inmates were getting better. People who they thought would never be let out were being let out. You know, there's all of these different things. So the way I'd heard it before was that he was saying this by looking at their files. He was sending them this energy. So I kind of thought, oh, it's a kind of sending kind of energy. And then somebody had posted the kind of original story and said, no, what was happening was that it was much more about taking responsibility for your whole experience of life as it is, even though it looks like it's somebody else's fault, responsibility, they're doing it. But actually saying, what he was doing was, by using this prayer to heal himself, they were benefiting. So it's almost like, if you're in your little kind of comfort zone, but you're kind of spreading it out, what you do is you affect everybody in that zone. So I hadn't got it that it was actually, no, it should be directed
at us.
But then, and then what that did was, so apart from that, what it did for me was, it got me to think about that whole question of responsibility. What are we responsible for, and what can we do make the world different? You know, so it was a bit of that, you know, kind of in a situation that I was in. I was like thinking, oh, so it's not about the other person in the situation, it's about me. What have I done to create them being like that towards me? So if I can heal myself, then that should heal the situation.
Because I think what we have, and it's very human, it's not a judgment on I don't, somebody else does, is we always look and we go, I'm okay, it's everybody else. I'm okay, it's something else. And sometimes it's clearly something else that has happened. It's clearly not us, but somebody else has acted in a certain way. But actually this comes from sort of tipping that philosophy, and it's a bit of the butterfly's wings. A butterfly shakes its wings, it has a ripple effect to when we get a tsunami somewhere. And if we what Dr. Hugh Lynn calls it is cleaning ourselves, making ourselves pure, reacting and being clean. He calls it being clean, but that's just his terminology, that's his way. But it's almost being very clear, very much our higher self, very sort of ourselves. And by doing that, it has a natural ripple effect that comes out onto other things and change. So when I've had, it's one of those things that I remember and do when you can't do anything else. When life is so overwhelming, you can't be positive, You can't meditate. You can't go and be very profound and understanding. You're feeling angry or jealous or sad or stuck in a corner or whatever. It's something I always turn to in that way, because it is, and it's the words always sounded to me a bit Catholic, a bit judgmental. I'm sorry, so therefore I go to, you know, confession.
Yeah, that's right.
Please forgive me. It's the confession, and then the priest cleanses you and all that. So I was very unhappy because I'm not religious, and my family was Catholic, and I've got lots of stuff over there, and we don't do Catholic. But it's, I'm sorry, just means I'm open. If there's something that I've done, something that I've been, or something that I haven't done, it's a releasing. It's a releasing of bad energy. It's not saying, asking someone else. I remember this in practice. I said, please forgive me. Is I let myself off the hook. How much do people say, I can't forgive myself, or I feel eternally guilty, or I wonder if I did something wrong? Have I not, you know, something with your children? Was I a bad mother? Something at work? You know, so it's something that's like, you're just releasing that. And then, thank you. That means I accept all of that myself. Therefore, it's complete. I love you. Love is creation. It's not I love you as a partner or a friend. When we are just in joy and in love, we are creative, whatever that is.
Yeah, and we did talk about, I kind of found one from the archives which we talk about loving ourselves, you know, and that whole thing about how hard that is, that concept of, to kind of love yourself. To love other people is kind of the easy side of the equation. But when you look at loving yourself, are you really, you know, and I remember that's
what the Ho'oponopono is.
Yeah, and I remember you using that kind of thing of, if you could have that person that was you sitting next to you, you could love that person. So can't you love you as you are in this thing? But I thought that was just interesting, and that whole concept of responsibility. And the course that I met my husband on, they talked about responsibility, saying it's the ability to respond. So if you've been through trauma, if you've been through all sorts of things like that, it's not condoning that, or agreeing that situation was okay, and all the rest of it. It's still saying whatever happened is absolutely validly, you know, maybe it was awful, whatever it was. But in terms of looking at your own responsibility in that situation, it's not you causing it. No, it's being, how could I respond to that? What's my ability to respond? So it was that whole thing about responsibility that I thought was an interesting concept.
Because a lot of people put responsibility and blame in the same, and they're two completely different things. And our ability to respond with love and kindness means that we're not taking on any horrible anger or jealousy that's in the situation. So when somebody does you down, or is cruel, you know, mean or greedy, and they do something to you, if your response is to join in with that, then you become part of that. So the Ho'oponopono thing is, you stay in your spiritual path, and everything that comes with you kind of melts away.
Yeah, and the other thing about that, getting into that negative cycle, again from the same course that we did, they I think the facilitator made some remark, and they said, so if, you know, somebody cuts you up on the motorway and you think bad thoughts about them, and then, you know, their leg falls off, or they crash the body, maybe it would be worthwhile having a bad thought about somebody else, because you've had a bad thought about them and something nasty's happened to them. But actually what happens in reality is nothing happens to that person. But what happens is you feel like crap, because you're getting into that negativity, and whatever hormones and chemicals go around your body as a result of you responding to that, whether it's cortisol or whatever it is. So you feel like shit. They're just going on the way they're going on. So thinking about that, your ability to respond to a situation, and you might, I try to get into the habit, you know, when you're going around the lanes around here and people are not reversing and they're not doing that kind of stuff, and they're being a bit of a pain, and they're driving down the middle of the road instead of in the hedge, as you should do in Devon. And I'm kind of, you know, I'm a bit, bless them. That's hard.
And it is hard, but it's like, you're where you are at the moment.
Yeah.
and I wish you well there.
Mm.
And that's kind of what the Ho'oponopono does, is like, I leave you there. Whereas if you stay in that same zone, it's like, you know, wishing you try and poison someone, but you're drinking the poison yourself.
Yes, exactly.
We're not doing that. So I discovered this a while ago, and it's written by Joe Vitale, who has one of those motivational speakers. But he came across Dr. Hewlin and wanted to spread that. This book was like, it was written first of 1953. It's a long while ago.
So it's not like we haven't known about it for a while.
And he's actually got Dr. Hewlin, who was the first person that we know of that was using it in that time, though it was probably unpublished from Hawaiian.
Yes, it's an ancient thing.
It's an ancient thing. And I would suggest, because people have put their own spin on it and twisted it, but I think it's always worth going back to the source and seeing where it comes from. So that's where I read about it, and I have to say, every circumstance I've used it, every single one, without fail, has improved.
I know,
really improved.
And I think it's just something that you can do. It is that thing of, is that an option? You know, when you're kind of, you know, awake at 1:30 in the morning or whatever it is, and your brain is, and you just think, you know what, let's just do this.
Sorry.
Let's just say it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you.
Yeah. So those are the 4 things. And do you know what? It's like one of those things, just see what the process brings, because your logical brain is kind of going, oh my God, this is never going to happen. But we don't know. It's like it's a process that you need to go through.
I noticed
and just see what happens.
Is when you're in stress, you don't realise how many times you chatter the negativity. So by processing, doing the Ho'oponopono every single time you remember, which might be 100 times a day, if you're really, really, really stressed by something, and you keep checking your email and checking the post or whatever it is, when you're really in that moment, I notice how many times my mind's gone into the problem. It's not improving anything.
No.
And so by just breaking that chain and going, and it's so easy because it's just a mantra, and you can just do the mantra and do the mantra, then you suddenly realize how much energy you're using worthlessly. And it's a simple mantra, and it changes things, and even if it doesn't, it will improve you just by doing a mantra.
Yes, that's right. So whatever it is, there's going to be better, you know, because I was like thinking, gosh, do you think I could take on climate change? I was just wondering. I mean, if I'm responsible for everything in my experience, you know, but well,
actually they do talk about this, and in the book as well. How do you, because the 50s, how do you deal with this war? How do we deal with this? And he goes, you clean and you clean and you clean, and if the war is still going on, you need to do more. So it's a very interesting that is still his thing, and it is all in this book, which you probably can get somewhere or the other. But it's old and it kind of works.
Great. So try it out next time you're having that kind of like, just, you know,
Ho'oponopono. So it's HO hyphen thing. Apono, OPONO space. Oh no. So it's got lots of O's. It's from Hawaii.
Exactly.